In human interactions, power rarely displays itself through loud declarations or aggressive postures. Instead, true control quietly operates in the subtle spaces of silence, calculated restraint, and deliberate psychological distance. Most people spend their entire lives reacting to the emotional environments created by others, completely unaware that their constant responsiveness strips away their personal influence and leaves them perpetually vulnerable to manipulation. When you immediately answer every question, explain your decisions, or rush to clarify misunderstandings, you signal to the surrounding world that your inner state is easily governed by external pressure. The individual who masters the architecture of self-mastery understands a fundamental psychological truth. Authority is not taken by force, but surrendered by those who cannot tolerate uncertainty. Consider how high-stakes negotiations unfold when one party refuses to fill a quiet room with eager words. The resulting discomfort forces the other side to reveal their true motives, offer concessions, and desperately seek validation. By remaining calm and unreadable, you shift the cognitive burden onto everyone around you, prompting them to project their own insecurities onto your quiet composure. Dark psychology demonstrates that humans possess an innate drive to solve mysteries, meaning that when you withhold complete transparency, people naturally assign greater depth, intelligence, and power to your persona. True strategic dominance requires you to detach your sense of identity from immediate outcomes, transforming yourself into an observer rather than an emotional participant in daily conflicts. When someone attempts to provoke you, their primary goal is to elicit a predictable emotional response that lowers your status and subjects your reactions to their control. If you respond with heated anger or immediate defensiveness, you validate their attempt, proving that their words possess sufficient weight to disrupt your internal equilibrium. Conversely, meeting hostility with cold, polite indifference creates a powerful psychological feedback loop where the attacker feels isolated and exposed by their own unprompted aggression. This dynamic is rooted in the law of reversed effort. The harder someone tries to rattle a composed target without success, the more desperate and powerless they appear to external observers. Strategy is not about overpowering the enemy through brute force. It is about establishing conditions where the enemy ultimately defeats themselves through their own uncontrolled impulses and strategic miscalculations. Historical philosophers often noted that he who governs his own mind holds greater dominion than any ruler who merely commands physical territories through fear. To build an aura of quiet authority, one must dismantle the subconscious habit of constantly seeking approval through over-explanation and unnecessary social validation. Every time you justify a simple choice to someone who has no standing to demand an accounting, you explicitly communicate that your autonomy requires their permission. High-value individuals speak in clear, definitive terms, leaving no trailing excuses or defensive arguments that invite unwanted debate or passive manipulation. When you speak less, every word you choose carries significantly enhanced weight, forcing others to listen attentively rather than filtering out routine conversational noise. Furthermore, strategic silence acts as an invisible shield, preventing competitors from discovering your true vulnerabilities, long-term plans, or momentary hesitations. People cannot easily sabotage a plan they cannot see, nor can they effectively manipulate an individual whose emotional triggers remain entirely concealed behind a wall of calm restraint. The art of strategic influence relies heavily on creating a subtle imbalance where you retain absolute clarity, while others struggle to decipher your next deliberate move. Many individuals fall into the trap of believing that kindness requires absolute transparency. Yet unvetted openness frequently invites disrespect from those wired to exploit weakness. Human psychology inherently values resources that are scarce, and your attention, trust, and personal information are no exception to this timeless economic law. When you make your internal world freely accessible to everyone around you, you inadvertently diminish your perceived value and invite unwanted interference in your affairs. Power dynamics dictate that those who maintain firm emotional boundaries and reveal their strategic intentions selectively command far higher levels of baseline respect. This practice does not require malice or overt cruelty. It simply demands a disciplined refusal to allow unearned access to your private thoughts and future ambitions. By systematically auditing who receives your trust, you build an environment where your presence carries gravity and your approval is recognized as something genuinely earned. Real power operates like a deep, still body of water, hiding its true depth beneath a smooth, unruffled surface that reflects everything while revealing nothing. Consider the profound psychological leverage gained when you master the delicate art of strategically delaying your emotional reactions to unexpected bad news or outright provocation. The average person operates on immediate impulse, instantly transforming internal anxiety into immediate verbal defense, blame, or visible panic that observers quickly exploit. By introducing a deliberate pause between a stimulus and your ultimate response, you grant yourself the tactical space needed to evaluate the situation with dispassionate logic. During this crucial pause, you systematically assess the underlying motivations of the speaker, identify potential strategic traps, and formulate a calculated response designed to optimize your outcome. This deliberate slowing of the interaction instantly alters the dynamic, signaling to everyone present that you remain entirely unaffected by external chaos. Observers naturally begin to adjust their behavior around you, sensing that cheap tricks and emotional theatrics will completely fail to produce their desired effect. Over time, this reputation for absolute composure transforms you into a natural anchor within any organization, group, or interpersonal circle you choose to navigate. A central element of psychological dominance involves mastering the strategic deployment of calculated absence to dramatically increase your perceived status and influence. Continuous presence breeds familiarity, and unchecked familiarity inevitably erodes the sense of intrigue and respect required to maintain genuine authority over time. When you are always available, always responsive, and perpetually accessible, your presence becomes normalized, taking on the common status of background noise rather than a valued asset. By stepping back, withdrawing your immediate attention, and cultivating a degree of unpredictability, you instantly trigger the natural human fear of loss and emotional displacement. People begin to value your presence far more intensely, simply because it is no longer treated as a guaranteed, permanent feature of their daily routine. Strategic scarcity forces others to reflect on your contribution, rethink their assumptions, and actively make space for your leadership when you choose to return. True mastery lies in knowing precisely when to assert your influence through action, and when to amplify your power by stepping entirely into the shadows. Understanding human motivation requires accepting that individuals are primarily driven by self-interest, security, and the relentless preservation of their personal pride. When you attempt to influence someone by appealing solely to abstract moral ideals, you often encounter resistance, hidden resentment, or compliance that vanishes the moment you walk away. To create lasting strategic alignment, you must frame your objectives in terms that directly resonate with the target's underlying desires, fears, or ambitions. By allowing the other person to feel as though they are pursuing their own goals, you eliminate unnecessary resistance and secure their organic cooperation without firing a shot. This approach requires setting aside your ego, resisting the urge to take visible credit, and focusing entirely on securing the underlying practical result. The most effective strategists operate entirely behind the scenes, guiding outcomes so smoothly that others genuinely believe the victory was entirely their own original creation. Power is never about receiving loud applause. It is about silently shaping the ultimate reality while others fight over meaningless public recognition. The final pillar of dark psychology and strategic self-mastery is the absolute elimination of needy energy regarding the outcomes of your endeavors. Needing a specific person to like you, a client to sign, or an adversary to surrender gives them immediate leverage over your emotional state and choices. When you cultivate genuine detachment, recognizing that you can comfortably walk away from any arrangement that fails to serve your standards, your power becomes absolute. Detachment is not cold apathy. It is the ultimate expression of confidence in your ability to adapt, endure, and thrive regardless of temporary setbacks. People can intuitively sense when you do not need their validation, and this realization paradoxically draws them toward your orbit with increased urgency and respect. When you operate from a position of total internal strength, external circumstances lose their ability to bend your will or force desperate, weak decisions. You become the master of your own destiny, moving through the world with a quiet, unshakable power that forces reality to bend to your calm intention.